Sometimes the life you planned isn't the life you're given. But what if the unexpected becomes the very thing that teaches you about belonging, advocacy, and purpose? Today's guest has spent years helping families navigate neurodiversity, disability, caregiving, and resilience. She's an author, a speaker, advocate, and founder of the Caffeinated Advocate. But more than anything, she's someone who believes our stories have the power to change lives. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about my next guest. See you there, everybody.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping up.
And hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Neurodivergent Connection. Today I'm joined with Catherine Hughes. Welcome to the show, Catherine.
Thanks for having me, Reed.
So, before people knew you as an advocate, an author, speaker, or leader, who were you? If we step back before all those roles, what was life like, and what experiences were quietly shaping the person you would become?
Wow, those are loaded questions. So let me go back to the beginning for me. Before I was an advocate, a speaker, a servant leader, any of those titles, any of the letters following my name, before all of that, I was a young mom. I had my son Christian when I was 19 years old. So I was a late teen mom. I was working in retail as an assistant manager at a store, and I was very new to being a mom and childcare, and you know, I didn't really know what I was doing, right? This was my first child, first time parent, and again being so young, there were a lot of things that were confusing for me, and I truly had a lot to learn. But my motherly instinct, something inside me said something's going on with my son when by the time he turned 3 years old, that he wasn't developing like the other neighborhood children. So I noticed that he wasn't forming sentences if he was forming words at all. Instead of playing with other children, he was running in fear of them.
Hmm.
He was doing some things that some might see as peculiar in the house, like flicking light switches on and off, or flicking the faucet on and off and being fascinated by the dripping of the water, lining up toys and not playing with them in a functional manner. So I noticed some things during his development, and as time went on, something said to me, this isn't quite right. And I think there's something going on. And again, being a young mom, I wasn't really sure where to turn. So I did what most new parents do is I went to my pediatrician and I asked him, what can we do? There's some things I'm not seeing. And I think, life could be better for him if we address some of these issues, the communication, the play skills, the socialization. And he said, there's nothing wrong. He's a boy. Boys sometimes form language slower than girls do. He said he might have ADHD, and by the time he goes to kindergarten, maybe he'll need a medication to focus in class. You're a young mom. You don't know what you're doing. Well, that's a narrative I told myself 1,000 times as I was trying to raise my son not only a young mother, but I was also a single mother too. And so when I heard that, it just reinforced that story that I'm not a good enough mother. And I'm just clueless. So, I took that and I remember taking him home and thinking there's something wrong. I need to go beyond this. About a few weeks later, we went to a specialist appointment and my son was waiting in the waiting room with me for 2 hours, which I'm sure, Reed, if you think about that, how frustrated are you after waiting 2 hours in a waiting room, or how any of us would feel after that? So he was engaging in some behaviors, and he took the little mallet where you test the reflexes on the knee. He grabbed that out of the doctor's hand and he flung it off his head. And the doctor takes me aside, and in this thick accent, he goes, Kathy, that's not normal. And, my first thought was saying, well, no kidding. But then there was this guilt and this shame that, wow, I'm not a good enough mom. I'm really not good enough, period. Later that day, we went to get something to eat before I had to go to work that night again. I was in retail. I was a young mom in retail. So, I'm getting ready for my shift at the mall and thought, well, we need to get something to eat and maybe that'll calm things down. And it absolutely didn't. In fact, there were more self-injurious behaviors and banging his head off the floor. And I went to take him out of the restaurant because he was clearly in a meltdown. He was incredibly upset. So again, motherly instinct, the ones I was trusting, said, we need to remove him from this situation. So when I tried to do that, he was flailing and he fell through my arms. And next thing I knew, the manager of the restaurant was running outside after me and screamed child abuser over and over and over. And I said, ma'am, I'm just trying to calm my son. Clearly, he's very escalated right now. I'm going to put him in the car and put on his favorite music and everything will be fine. I'm sure that's all he needs. I'm going to give him some quiet space. And she kept screaming at me and then told me what a horrible mother I was. And then she ran back in the restaurant and I thought it was over, but the nightmare was just beginning. What happened after that is mind-blowing. 4 police cars surrounded mine. 4 police cars, officers stepped out of the vehicle and they're banging on my car window and saying, get out of the car and hand over your child. The manager ran back into the restaurant to call the police on me because she thought I was abusing my son. And then other people heard me yelling because I was frustrated and thought I was making terroristic threats on my 3-year-old. So, Reed, I was arrested.
Oh, God.
I was arrested and spent 4 days in jail being evaluated to see if I was a threat to my son or a threat to general society. Charged with terroristic threats, child abuse of a minor on my own child, when all I wanted to do that day was to get home and make a phone call to our local children's hospital in Pittsburgh and to start the path of finding out what's going on and what can I do. I clearly need help as a mom. Mm-hmm. The worst part of that situation is that not one person said my 4 favorite words. How can I help? Not one person. Not one person asked what was going on. Nobody asked me a question. They made assumptions about who I was without even knowing my name. And completely traumatized my family. I lived at home with my parents who were helping me to raise my son. Again, I'm a single mom. And he couldn't be sent home because he lived with me and my folks. And now that I had these charges, they said he can't return home. So they placed him in foster care that evening and took him from my parents, took him from any familiarity. Now, on top of what was happening developmentally, he also had a slew of medical issues as well, biomedical in nature. We're talking thyroid, gut issues, and some other things that were occurring. So here I am. I'm sitting in a local cell. I'm transported to the county cell. And I'm sitting amongst all of these people, the drug dealers, someone who was jumping up and down, screaming that she had beat up her husband and she was proud of herself. And, it's just like in the movie where someone says, what are you in here for? And everyone goes around the room. What are you here for? What are you here for? And they finally get to me and I just burst into tears and said, I was just trying to help my little boy. And now I don't know if he's getting his medication tonight. I don't know if he's getting his special juice cup. I don't know if he's going to have access to a favorite toy. I don't know what they're coming to get. All I know is that I'm here and he's God knows where, and my parents don't know where he is. And I'm helpless and I feel hopeless. Reed, that's where those titles began. Sitting in a jail cell, wondering what's going to happen next. Am I ever going to see my child again? And if and when I get out, because I didn't know the if, I didn't know what was happening. All I knew was I need to get out and I need to help my son. I need to make phone calls. I need to find help. And I need a village. Because I can't do this by myself. Thankfully, I was out in 4 days. We were able to obtain an incredible lawyer in the Pittsburgh area. She listened to my case. She met with the caseworker from Children, Youth, and Families. And by the time we got to that initial meeting in Child and Family Court in Allegheny County,
Mhm.
The judge called me up to the stand and says, "Come here, Kathy, why the hell are you in my courtroom? Why are you here?" And again, yeah, a lot of emotion in this situation. I'm bawling in front of her again. And I said, "I just need help. I don't know why nobody is listening to me. I have concerns about my son's development." I gave the laundry list of what he was doing and not doing. And she said, "We're going to court order a psychological evaluation. We're going to set it up at the hospital. It's going to be within 2 weeks. And we're going to get you an emergency appointment." And that's what they did. And at that appointment, I sat with my checklist, the Gilliam Autism Rating Scale, child development this, and, other development that. And, I'm looking at this autism rating scale and I thought, autism? No, wait, I think I heard about that in a college class. Okay. So, oh yeah, and there was a movie named Rain Man. Yeah, I know what this is. And then I said, no, that's not my son. That's not him. But then as I was moving through the checklist and started looking at, there's this, there's that, sometimes, always, 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 oh boy, always. I thought, oh my goodness, this is our reality. This is what's happening. 2 weeks later, we went to go over the results with the doctor, and he had a social worker with him. And they sat me down, and the social worker took my hand, and the doctor took my other hand, and they said, "This is not your fault. Your child has a developmental delay. You are the mother of a son with autism." It's that situation that fueled the fire for becoming an advocate, for becoming a researcher, for becoming a case manager, becoming a secretary, becoming a teacher, becoming a therapist, becoming a bus driver, becoming all of these things because I had to. Because I had to do it. And Reed, this is why I do what I do today, working professionally in the field. I have my own business. I have a full-time leadership role at a behavioral health provider that works in multiple states. I do what I do because I don't want any caregiver to walk in the same shoes that I did.
Mhm.
I don't want someone to feel alone. I don't want someone to blame themselves. I want to be that person that walks alongside them and says, "You're not alone. There is help and there is hope." We build a village, and that village, they helped my son to thrive farther beyond my wildest dreams. There were people along the way that said, "He'll never, he'll never, he'll never, he'll never." And you shatter the nevers, right? You don't accept those. You find the people that invest in your family and invest in your loved one so they can live their best life, and to make you feel less alone, to jump into the trenches and pull your hand and say, "I got you. We're going to do this. We're going to do this together." That is why I do what I do, because people helped me build a village, and now I am privileged to help them do the same.
I mean, first of all, I gotta say, I'm surprised your family didn't turn around and sue the manager of the place.
I wanted to. I really wanted to, but it was a major chain restaurant. It wasn't like a small mom and pop
Mhm.
sort of shop. So, big corporation, lawyers. And to be honest, after the $25,000 it took to clear my name when I didn't even do anything wrong, I didn't have the resources. But
Mhm.
also, Reed, I didn't have the capacity.
Yeah, I
My
understand that.
focus, my focus at that time, of course, I needed to clear my name, and I did that, and I've been expunged, and I have absolutely no record today. But my full focus at that time was helping my son, who was just diagnosed with autism, to get the resources and the supports he needed to be well and to succeed. So that became the focus.
You said one important thing, and that was to break the stigma, to break
Yes.
to break the no, to break the you can't.
Yes.
And through life, I have learned that you should eliminate the word can't from your vocabulary
Absolutely.
because it's a negative word. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as you can't do it. It's you won't do it.
Yes. That
And
choice.
and I remember I was older. I was young, about in my late 20s, early 30s. We went to DHS because couldn't find work, didn't know what to do. No one wanted to hire me.
Mm-hmm.
And mom was like, let's go to the Department of Human Services and see what they can do.
Mhm.
Sat down with a caseworker. This was a new caseworker because my old one had moved up, and sat down with this woman. And I told her I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to university, get myself a degree. And blatantly out of nowhere, she goes, "You're not capable of a 4-year university. All I see you doing is getting an associate's degree from a 2-year." And I stayed silent. My mom always had taught me, don't bring yourself down to their level, no name calling. So I held my own. I was patient and I thanked her. And as we left, my mom turned to me and says, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, "I want to email her supervisor because I have her name." And mom was like, "You got to remember, you got to be professional with this. No name calling, no insulting." So I blatantly said in the email, "I've never been insulted in my entire life. Been told that I can't do something when this woman only knows me by paper and not by who I am
Oh,
and what I can do."
yes.
And that's the problem with society is when they look at someone who's autistic or who's neurodivergent or like ADHD, they assume the worst.
Right.
They're like they don't see how smart we really are.
Right.
And I wound up getting a new caseworker. And
Good.
years later, look at where I'm at. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree.
Incredible.
And I mean,
Incredible.
for people listening, listen, never like, I don't want to hear if your child says they can't, don't berate them and just say, no, it's not that you can't do it. It's just you won't do it. But let them show them what their dreams are, find out what their dreams are,
Yes.
and guide them. That's what I have
Yes.
to say. Guide them.
Yes. And don't assume. You can't look at a name or a label or letters or a diagnostic code even and
Yeah.
say, because of this, this is the box that you stay in and this is what they're capable of. Absolutely untrue. You can't
No.
read a report and assume this is who this person is. They need to speak with you and learn exactly who you are from your mouth, from your voice.
Hmm.
You sharing, this is who I am.
Hmm.
This is actually me,
I mean,
not what a paper says.
yeah, I mean, that's why I wrote my book, is because so many neurodivergents are afraid of leaving that zone.
Right,
They have the familiarity of family, of things they're comfortable with, but the world is full of negative. And
right.
one little thing, when you're neurodivergent, builds up, and you put a wall in front of yourself, and then you just don't break it down. But the world is full of so much beauty,
It is.
and I want them to see that.
Absolutely. And I know your book isn't out yet, but I've had the privilege of reading it, which I
Mhm.
appreciate you, letting me have that insight and to give some feedback. And your book is something that this world needs. It's brilliantly written. It's beautifully written. And it's not only going to help people become more aware and have a better understanding of the neurodivergent experience, but for someone who is neurodivergent who reads it, you are going to inspire them to break down those walls, to shatter the glass ceilings, and to say, this label, this name doesn't define who I am. It is definitely a part of who I am, and I can't change who I am.
No, I
But
mean,
hey, world, I'm going to show you who I am because I am capable, because I want to.
yeah. I mean, part of the problem is they feel this is a lot of us use the diagnosis as who they are. They put the diagnosis before the person. It should be the other way around. It's not I'm an autistic person, it's I am a person who is autistic. Because you aren't your diagnosis. And I've had this discussion with someone else before, and you're not your diagnosis. Don't use it as a crutch. Because if you do, it's like saying I'm autistic, therefore I'm an asshole. No,
Not at all.
you are an asshole because you're an asshole. Don't
Right.
use
If
your
you are, that's
autism.
what you are because that's who you are and that's who
Yeah,
you've chosen. That's who you've chosen to be. And you
yeah,
don't have to be, but if that's the path you chose, that's the path you chose. But
yeah,
you are you. I'm Kathy, you're Reed. People are people. They are who they are.
yeah. Don't say you're doing what you're doing because of your diagnosis. No, it's just who you are.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a bridge and that's the road I will stand on. Is do not let your diagnosis be who you are, because if you are going to wind up that way, you're going to be you're going to be a little person in a little life, and you're going to stick in your little comfort zone, and you're going to turn back in time, and when you're 80 years old you're going to turn back and say, I should have, could have, would have done all that, and
Yes.
you never did.
Yes. And we don't want to live with regret. We get one beautiful and wonderful life. We're blessed to be here. Every day we wake up is a treasure. So
Hmm.
what will we do with it? Are
Yeah,
we going to sit and let things restrict us or a word define us or let people say this is who you need to be? Or are we going to stand on our own 2 feet and say, no, this is who I am. This is what I want for my life. And you can tell me I can't, but I'm going to show you how I can.
yeah. Anyways, what values were you raised with?
Giving. The strongest value I was raised with is giving. And
Mhm.
that shows in the way I nurture all of my relationships, my relationship with my son, my relationship with my mom, other family members who have went before us, in my work that I do in my full-time leadership role, or what I do to support caregivers and individuals through the Caffeinated Advocate. Giving is something that has been instilled in me. You love on people. If you can't help them, don't hurt them. Provide help and provide hope.
Mhm.
When the mailman comes to deliver the mail in the heat wave that we're enduring right now, go out and ask how his day is. Hand him a bottle of cold water. When you see that parent struggling, don't pass judgment and say, oh, wonder what goes on in their house. Try asking, how can I help? Is there anything that you need? How are you feeling right now? Would you like to talk? If I was standing in a restaurant watching a parent struggling with their child, as I did in that restaurant that fateful day, what I would like to say to them is, how can I help? Who can I call? Is there something you need? Can I help you carry something? Whatever the situation is, how can we love on other people? Both my mom's side, my dad's side, they've always been very nurturing and loving. So that is the biggest value that was instilled in me, was, truly nurturing and loving on other people. And that's why I like to call myself a lifetime caretaker, because I care for people so much, sometimes to a fault. I'm a very empathetic person. So sometimes I do a little too much, but it all comes from a good place. It comes from the heart and just wanting people to live their best lives.
Were there moments that helped shape the way you see the people today?
Definitely, including the one, I've been talking about this whole time. You know, it's very easy to pass judgment on someone else's experience. I'm sure you've even had moments, maybe even yesterday, I don't know, where you walk past someone or you witness something, or you even scrolled on social media and saw something and you passed a judgment. We all do it. We're human, right? We all are humans living a human experience. So, it's very easy to make a judgment or to make an assumption. And what I experienced has taught me not to pass assumptions, and you need to ask questions. You need to communicate. Don't judge.
Now, every advocate has a moment when something shifts from being personal to becoming a mission. Can you take me back to that turning point in your own life?
Absolutely. So, aside from the arrest and procuring the services for my son, about 2 years later, I remember waking up and telling myself, this is where you need to be. I had stopped working in retail because I couldn't keep up with the demanding schedule of my child's therapies, school needs. Everything kept piling up for me, and I realized I need to do something because there are other people that are walking in shoes like mine. And I thought, wouldn't it be incredible if I could go beyond leading a play group, which is something I did when my son was in preschool. I got some parents together and we all had some chit chats, and that became like a small support group and a play group for our kids. And I wanted to go beyond that. And I thought, what if I could work for a provider like the one that's giving my son therapy in our home? What if I could be the one to answer the phone? What if I could be the one to pick up the phone to that parent that's crying, that just got their diagnosis, that's confused, that doesn't have a village, that doesn't know where to turn, and be the one that says, I'm here to listen. You're not alone. There's help available, and I'm going to list what you need. Tell me more about your family. Tell me more about your child. What is their experience like? What therapies do they have now? What resources are you looking for? What would help your family the most? And I was very fortunate that a local provider that I had connected with reached out to me and said, would you like to work for us part-time? Would you like to provide some parent support on a part-time basis? I screamed, I cried, and I said, absolutely. And then after I started doing that work, I was bitten by the bug, if you will. And I just wanted to do more. I wanted to be an advocate. I wanted to do more with family support. I wanted to help develop programs. And importantly, I wanted to be a part of a therapy provider to offer that parent perspective. So throughout the years in the leadership that I've done, I have done so many workshops and trainings with our staff, not just for families in the community, but also for our internal staff, saying, when you walk into a parent's home for the first time, put down your device, put down your assessments, listen, stop talking, listen, build that rapport, let them know that you care, let them know that you're there because you're as invested in their child as they are. Make that commitment. And that is something that's been so important to my work over the years, is to make sure that the staff going into homes or providing services in a center are able to put themselves in the parent's shoes.
I mean, that is such an important thing. And I had a guest early on who works for the University of Virginia, and they have a program where if you want to work with children who are disabled, before you even get into that field, they place you within a family's home. So you
Mm-hmm.
see firsthand what it's like to work
Yes.
with somebody. And I'm like, amen to that, because that's what needs to be done. You can't just put your, want to work with them unless you know what it's like to be them, to be in that family, to see what they struggle with. And it's an amazing thing. I mean, that's what most schools should do, is say, oh, you want to work with those who are autistic, then you need to be put in a home with somebody who has an autistic child and see how they live and what they struggle with. And then you can start working in that field.
Absolutely. And, so many folks come in, whether it's early intervention, an ABA provider, a consultant, a social worker, whomever it is. They come in and they have their set of questions, and this is what I need to do, and I need to develop a plan. You can't develop a plan until you get to know that family. Like you said, what are their struggles? What do they need? What are some barriers that they're facing? So you can understand how you fit into that puzzle and how you can help them overcome what the struggles are,
Mm-hmm.
so their child can make progress. You can't develop anything or implement a plan on a child or a family until you have the right information. So for me, again, working for a provider that provides a multitude of approaches for children, teens, and adults, I make sure that wherever possible, I'm not only supporting the family, but I'm helping the staff understand from that neuroaffirming lens what needs to happen. Because so many therapies, especially ABA, do get a terrible rap. And there are people that have had crap ABA. There was a time when my son had crap ABA. You have to have the right people, but you also have to have the people that understand it's about compassion over compliance. That's one of the most important things, whether it's ABA or whether it's any other treatment approach. You have to be a compassionate person, and you have to understand that when a child is screaming and crying, this is not the push for, let's just let it go on for 45 minutes and keep pushing them until they've been completely traumatized. Walk out of the room. Let the person have a moment. Let that child have a moment. Let them be. Come back to it. And if you don't make progress that day, call it a day. We need to remember the human in human services. It's critical. And I'm proud to be a part of that.
Yeah. Now, as a mother of a neurodivergent son, how has that journey changed not only the way you understand him, but the way you've come to understand yourself?
Oh, that's a heavy one. Oh, Reed, that is such a heavy one. You know, I've learned so much from him, and I still learn from him every day, and that's the God's honest truth. He's taught me how to look at others, whether it's a family member, whether it's someone else who's neurodivergent. But yes, he's also taught me a lot about myself. He has given me strength like no other. He has taught me patience. He has taught me resilience. He has made my faith steadfast. There is so much that he has done for me, more than sometimes I feel like I could ever do for him.
What has that taught you?
It's taught me to believe in myself. It's taught me to believe that the story I told myself for so long that I was just a young, stupid mother was absolutely false. Truly, that belief in myself is one of the strongest things he could have taught me.
How has your relationship evolved over the years?
Sometimes rocky, but otherwise very strong. And I say that because there are so many times, and this is another thing he's taught me, there's so many times where I thought I knew the right answer and I wasn't listening enough. I wasn't digging deep enough, and I wasn't hearing. I was listening, but I wasn't truly hearing what it was he was trying to communicate to me. So even to this day, there's moments where we might be engaged in a text conversation, or we're sitting at night. We always have, some mom and son bonding time at night, and we spend time together. And sometimes he says, "You're just not hearing me. You're just not getting it." And he's right. There are times I don't get it, and I need to stop, and I need to pause, and I need to truly hear what it is he's trying to communicate to me. And sometimes I learn something new. I'm going to be 48 years old this year. I'm pushing my 50s, and I'm still learning from him every day. And, that other thing he's taught me is if I just take the time to listen and hear and truly reflect on his experience, his authentic experience, and what I can learn from that, it's really, really powerful.
Now, you speak often about belonging, and I think that's a word people use without always stopping to define it. When you hear the word belonging, what does it mean to you?
It means so much. It means ultimately equity. And so many people use the word equality or access or inclusion and think that's where it stops. But you can include somebody, but it doesn't mean that they feel like they belong.
Mm-hmm.
It's about providing that equal access and including them, but also going beyond that and making that person feel like you're welcome here. You are a part of this community.
Mm-hmm.
You are loved. You are important. Your voice matters. That is what is going to bring us to a state of true belonging. We can't just post pictures and make social media posts and say things and not take the action that is truly going to make that person feel like
Mm-hmm.
I am one of them. I'm not outside the box. I'm in the box with them. I'm truly a part of this. And everybody deserves the chance to belong. And they deserve to belong where they want to be, not where you think they want to be. Not saying this person has autism, so you know what? When I recommend some social supports for them, I'm just going to recommend a support group for people with autism. That's great if that's what they want, if they want to connect with other neurodivergent people. But what if they want to connect with someone on a different level? What if someone wants to meet people their age? What if someone wants to connect with other people who have a shared interest? Maybe they want to connect with people in their workplace. It's not about where society believes they belong. Where does that person, where do you as Reed belong?
Mhm.
What I like to say when people ask me, where do kids with autism go to school? Where do people with autism work? Where do people with autism go? My answer, quite frankly, is wherever the hell they want.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. Wherever the hell they want, that's where they belong. They define it.
I mean, I'm working on my second book, I should say.
Ooh, I love that.
And it's different than the first. It's Harry Potter, but with no enemies, no villains. It's all about belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically seven friends who find themselves in this academy for magic.
Mm-hmm.
And how each one finds out they belong into this academy, and then how each accepts each other. And a bunch of them are autistic with ADHD, and how they support each other. And it's
Yeah.
all about belonging and friendship and found family. And it's all positive. And that's one of the biggest things I think those who are autistic need to know is you belong everywhere.
That's it. That's
So
it right there. You belong everywhere.
everywhere. Society needs to accept that fact that we aren't different. Though we think differently, but we're not different from everyone else.
Right.
We are incredibly smarter than everybody in actuality because we think outside of the box.
Right. And as Temple Grandin said, the world needs all kinds of minds, and she couldn't be more on the money. The world does. The world needs different
Yep.
perspectives. We don't all have to agree.
Hmm.
It would make the world pretty boring if we all agreed with each other.
Yeah.
Everyone has something to add.
Now, have there been moments when you felt you truly belonged?
Yeah, there's definitely moments where I've felt I belong. And the more work I do in this community, the more I feel like not only I belong,
Hmm.
but I'm truly able to lead in an incredibly strong way. I'm really proud of that. I love being a part of the community. I love supporting caregivers, but also the more work I do, the more folks I connect with that are authentically neurodivergent. The fact that I've been welcomed being a caregiver and not someone with a lived experience because I'm not diagnosed as neurodivergent. So the fact that so many adults with autism they're embracing me. They want to learn also from me and are opening their minds to say, there's another perspective we haven't thought of. Let's learn from you. And I can say, I don't have your lived experience. I'm really hungry to learn from you. I'm excited to hear your story. That's something that means a lot to me. And that belonging in particular is so special.
Now, advocacy often grows from experience we've never planned to have. What was the journey from living your story to realizing your voice could help someone else?
So given everything I went through, I knew I had, a powerful story. I knew that also I wasn't alone. There were probably other parents that went through something similar, if not the same thing that I went through. And I knew that my story would have power, and I knew that that could help other people. And then as I grew, not only in the field, but as a parent, and especially in, say, school meetings, and I would learn from those,
Hmm.
and I'd learn more about special education rights, and then I learned more about services, both as a parent, living as a caregiver, raising someone with autism, but then also working in the field. I discovered so many more resources, and as I learned about the ins and outs, whether it's a law, whether it's a policy, state, county, federal, what have you, I learned that I can use this knowledge and I can help other parents. I can help guide other people's journeys. So it was a real turning point for me as I worked a few years in the field. I realized that I am in this unique position to speak not only as a parent who's fighting for her own child services and his schooling, but I'm also someone who is professionally learning all these things. And it would be selfish to keep all of this to myself. So I started doing more with advocacy, even outside of my job. And eventually in 2018, I started writing a blog. And that's what led me to form the Caffeinated Advocate outside of my work for providers, because I knew there was so much more I could do and there were so many people I could help outside of the radius of what I do for the provider. So now wherever someone is, if they reach out to me and say, I need you to help fight alongside me, I need you to help fight for my child, I have the resources both personally and professionally to say, hey, I can help you do this. And I'm just so happy to do it.
Was speaking publicly something that came naturally?
No, absolutely hell no. I didn't take speech class in high school because I was petrified getting in front of people. Whenever I had to read anything for English class or anytime I had to speak in front of a group of people, I was that person that shook with a piece of paper and the paper was making a lot of noise. And I would sound like this because I was stuttering and scared. And then my palms would get sweaty. And I had no business when I was younger getting up in front of a room of people because I spoke terribly. I couldn't stick to the topic. I couldn't even read off a piece of paper because my nerves, oh my gosh, I was just so scared. I was so nervous. And I also wasn't confident in myself. But it was really, becoming a parent and learning everything I did and becoming a stronger advocate and a stronger mother and then working in the field, I started to gain my voice. And then there was the day that my boss said to me, it's time to tell your story. Now, in that moment, I thought, oh shit, I'm not ready for this. But what happened was I got up in front of a room of people, and though I started to cry, and at one moment I thought I was going to fall on the floor because I was telling my story and I was reopening that wound from 2001 for the first time. But my boss stood next to me and he took my hand and he just looked at me and he said, no, you can do this. And out came my story and I spoke fluently. I spoke confidently. I didn't shake. I didn't stutter. And I wasn't sweating. And it was that moment where I realized I have something to give, not just my story, but this continued lived experience and what I'm learning from others, the clinicians I'm working with, the community resources I'm connecting with. And I truly have a voice and I can and I will use it. And that is what I have continued to do. And I've spoken in groups of 5. I've spoken in front of 15,000 people. And I'm proud to do it because I know that my voice makes a difference. And every storyteller I work with, every speaker that I connect with who is having me help shape their presentation, what they want to talk about, really help them find their voice. I help to uncover those stories. And I remind them that I was once you. I was once that person that couldn't get up and tell my story, but your story matters. Mm-hmm. So get up there and use your voice, because your voice and your story might be the one that unlocks someone's prison. And yes, I'm using prison as an analogy here, being the girl that was arrested. Your story can truly save someone. Your story can truly change someone's life. And that's why we use our voice. That's why you have a podcast. That's why you're writing a book, because you have a story to tell and you have this authentic lived experience. You want to get that out there. And that's what I continue to do too. And again, I say this all the time. I've said it multiple times during this interview. I'm proud of myself for this. I'm proud to be able to help other people. This is how I was raised, was to give. And this is how I can give back and love on our world, as I can speak and I can help.
I know that experience way too well.
Yes.
When I was going for my master's, we had a mini workshop where we had to talk about our thesis in front of the class. Mm-hmm. And we would sit there and we'd wait for our number to be called and talk. And all I remember was my hands went cold and clammy. I felt like I had a fever.
Oh gosh.
My hand, I mean, my hands were cold and clammy, and I couldn't figure out what was
Mm,
going on. Got called up. I talked. I answered some questions, and all of a sudden, it's like all the feeling in me just came back. My temperature was warm, and it turned out I was just in shock from being so nervous to talk about this. And I'm like, and all I remember was, I don't want to go through that feeling again.
yeah, yeah. But you did it.
Yeah, I did it. I mean, I had to do it. I mean, to get
Yeah,
the grade, part of the grade, I needed to talk in front of my fellow students.
yeah. And now you continue to speak and
Yeah.
share.
Now, you said that storytelling has the power to create understanding and change. Why do you think stories can reach people in ways that facts and statistics can't? Statistics sometimes can't.
Read, it's all about human connection. When we tell our stories, there's always an element that somebody is going to relate to. They may not relate to every single thing you share, but there is something while you're speaking with them that is going to connect. They're going to get a feeling.
Hmm.
And when you connect through feelings and you're able to create that emotional engagement, that's when you know you've reached someone. You
Hmm.
see that maybe they tilt their head differently. Maybe they breathe like a sigh. Maybe they're nodding. Maybe in the middle of the conversation, they're just going to give you a hug randomly. Something you say is going to connect, and you're going to see something. You're going to see something that is going to indicate to you, we've connected. So
Has
you look for
someone's
that.
has someone's story ever changed your own perspective?
There are so many, I can't even pinpoint just one. There are so many people, whether it's folks in the field, whether it's parents that I've connected with, whether it's neurodivergent individuals that I've connected with. There are so many people who have influenced who I am, and I'm blessed that I get to do this good work, and I'm going to continue to have those stories connect with me. I love what I do. I love the sharing, and I really enjoy all of these conversations that I get to have.
What makes a story unforgettable?
When I walk away and wake up the next day or a week later, maybe it's 2 years later, and I go, remember when?
Mm.
I'll give you an example. One that's coming to mind for me is the time that I got a call from someone who was enrolled in at the provider that I worked for at that time. And it was 10:55 p.m. My son was in bed, folks were in bed, and of course I was about to go to bed. But when I saw my phone ring and I recognized that phone number and said, oh, that's that new family that just started services last week, I picked up the phone and she proceeded to cry. She proceeded to tell me how overwhelmed she was to have people coming into her home, to hear her child crying when someone came to the door because he wasn't quite ready to let someone else into the house that he didn't know. She felt so alone. And at the time, she didn't have that village that we talked about. And
Hmm.
I knew that she needed somebody. And even though it was late at night, and some folks might say, I ended the day at 4:30. My shift is done. For me being a mom, because I've been that mom,
Hmm.
I knew I needed to engage in a conversation with her. And we talked until about 12:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And we continued to share and we continued to cry. And then we laughed. And this woman ran into me a year later at a conference in Pittsburgh. And I remember her coming up to me and she practically tackled me with a hug. And she took me by the face and she said, thank you for the difference you made in my life. I can still picture her face to this day.
Mm.
She is a parent that I will never forget because I just took a phone call from a parent a late night who said, I'm feeling alone. And me taking that extra time to remind her that she wasn't alone. It was truly a solid reminder and still is today of why I do what I do because I have been that mom. I'm still that mom. There's still days that I'm struggling, whether it's supporting my son or supporting my mom. My mom lives with my son and I, and our 6 cats, by the way. We're a crazy cat house. But my mom is 82 and she is pacemaker dependent, diabetic. She has dementia.
Yeah.
And so, I'm that person who still struggles to this day and sometimes at night needs someone to talk to because I'm feeling alone, even though I know there's resources. I know it's out there. I know I have people, but sometimes I still feel alone. And then I think back to moments like that, realizing that the human connection and that experience sharing, they matter. They matter so, so much.
I mean, that brings me back to like one of my very few first guests who I helped. Her and her husband are both comedians, and her son is autistic. And you're like, we're talking and stuff. She's like, I need advice. I'm like, what's going on? And we're talking during the show, and she's like, well, we're moving, and I don't want my son to have a panic attack or a meltdown because we're moving into a new house. What can we do? I'm like, find something from his old room, put it into his new room. This way, he's got something familiar to
Yes.
connect to, and then he connects that to the room, and then he makes that room his. Because
Hmm.
otherwise, if there's nothing there, it's just an empty room. But the
Yeah.
minute you put something of his in it, it becomes his.
Yes. And that
And
familiarity provides such comfort.
yeah, and then I talked to her like late, weeks later, and she's like, "Thank you so much for that hit, for that little tip that helps so much in getting him settled into the new house, and he enjoys his new room, and I am so thankful for that tip." I'm like, and that's the kind of thing that sticks to you.
It does. It really does. That little tip you provided wasn't just a little tip. You helped him go from having a house
Hmm.
to a home,
Yeah.
helping him become comfortable and familiar and build a routine in the new home and say, wow, this isn't just a room. This is my room. I
Yeah.
have something in here that's providing me comfort. And now this can become mine. You did that.
But the biggest story I remember was I have a blog, and my blog is where I park my shows every so often or put important stories up. And every so often I'd get a comment on something. I get this comment from this guy, and he goes, "Hi, I'm writing to you. I am dealing with, I think it was stage 4 colon cancer, but I'm not writing about me. I'm writing about my sister who's autistic. And my father's side of the family is keeping her from seeing the world. But your show has shown me that there's so much positive out there that I'm going to talk to them about it and let them know that holding her back is the wrong thing to do. Thank you so much." And it's stories like that that stick to me to this day.
Absolutely. When you know that your work matters and that it truly changed somebody, that's why we keep
Mhm.
going.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't always feel like it. We don't feel like writing the blog or doing the show or sharing a story. But when we take the time to do that, it's going to land with someone and it's going to stick and it's going to be life changing. So thank goodness he found you and found your show and, was able to find some uplifting messages that helped him to go on and help his sister.
Yeah. Now, today you lead with a large behavioral health organization while also carrying your lived experience into work. How has your personal journey influenced the kind of leader you've become?
Wow. So I've really grown within the work that I've done, and it's continued to build my confidence. It's continued to build my hunger for growth and to consistently ask myself, how can I do more? And some days that might be a lot. Some days I may work in my full time role for 12 hours because we have an event, we have something for families, we have an event for kids, we
Hmm.
have our adult group, whatever that may be. But I'm always looking for more that I can do. So that's part of why I have the Caffeinated Advocate, so I can help families beyond the ones I help within my full-time role. So I can also advocate. I can't act as an educational advocate within my full-time role in case the provider has a relationship with the school district. I can't appear adversarial. But outside of the provider, when I have families from other states that say, can you read my report? Can you interpret? Can you write letters? Can you virtually attend my meeting? Yeah, I can do that. So I can continue to lend my voice in different ways and help people fight, for their kids, or maybe it's an adult looking for services. And I can say, I can help you navigate that. I'm approached every day by individual authors who are either on the spectrum or that are caregivers that want to share their story. And really that's my niche. An author that I'm working with now, she found me through ChatGPT, and she said, I'm looking for a writing coach and an editor that has lived experience in disability and neurodiversity, and somehow it popped upon me. So that's something I'm really priding myself on right now, is that this is really my niche, is helping to elevate voices in this community and helping storytellers, whoever they may be, individual, family member, professional, whatever that is, but helping them to uncover the stories that they've been carrying with them for so long. So that's something else I'm really proud to do as a storyteller. My tagline is story, strategies, and solutions. So whether you're an organization, whether you're a writer, whether it's someone who's looking to speak, whether you're a caregiver that's looking for resources, whether you need an advocate, I do all of those things. There is no way to put me into a box. And there's so many people who have tried to advise me and say, well, you have this full-time job and then you have this business on the side and you need to pick one thing and make that your offering. And I say, I don't fit into a box and I don't want to, because I have so much I can give because I've been blessed with these experiences, both personally and professionally. And that's just what I'm going to continue to do.
Now, caregivers spend so much time supporting everyone else that their own needs can quietly disappear into the background. What have you learned about caring for the caregiver?
Admittedly, sometimes my self-care sucks. I'll just say it. Sometimes it just sucks. But it's something I preach to the caregivers I support, because when you do pour from your cup and there's nothing left, then there's no way you can give to the loved ones that you're trying to support. So I like to tell the caregivers I support that you need to pour from your overflow and not emptying the cup that you have. Because if your cup isn't full, if you are not fully energized, if you're not healthy, if you don't have a positive mindset, you're not going to be able to help your kids. You're not going to be able to help your adult children. You're not going to be any good to anybody unless you take care of yourself. So I tell folks, don't ignore appointments. For example, I know so many parents who have said that they've put off procedures, or they've put off going to the doctor or getting a tooth filled because they say, I just don't have time. You have to make the time. To be honest, I'm actually, if you can see, I'm wearing a heart monitor right now. I'm having some issues myself. And instead of waiting until my August appointment and saying, I'll be fine, I'll just keep working, I'm too busy with mom, I'm too busy supporting Chris, I'm too busy doing all these things, I'm just going to let it go. I didn't do that. I knew that if I didn't take care of myself, that the choice might be made for me. So I moved up my appointment. I told my concerns to my PCP, and he said, hey, there's something going on here. We need to look into this. So this is what I encourage other caregivers to do. And here's, my visual example, like right on this interview right now, showing that you have to take care of yourself. So whatever that is that the caregiver needs, whether it's a medical appointment or maybe it's just, taking a longer shower. Maybe it's, I need to take a nap for a half an hour. So the caregiver tells their spouse, I need to go lay down. I need a break. I need to listen to some music. I want to read a book. Maybe they want to get out for an hour and say, I'd like to go for a walk. I'd like to go shopping for new clothes for myself. Whatever that is, they deserve to take that space. So whatever self-care looks like to them. And for everybody, of course, it's different. What is self-care for us is not the same as self-care for somebody else, but it's so critical. So that's something I encourage caregivers to do, is don't put anything off. If you need a break, you need a break. You need to make an appointment, you make an appointment, and you do it because you can't care for anyone else if you're not at full capacity.
Why is asking for help often so difficult?
The guilt. We feel guilty when we ask for help. Speaking as a mom, I'm Superwoman, right? Mm-hmm. See the invisible cape here, the invisible cape on my back? We feel like we have to do everything. We feel like if we're not, that there's something wrong with us. that we're doing something wrong. We blame ourselves for not having the answers. And there's no reason we should be doing that. There is no shame in asking for help and saying, I don't know this. Maybe I can ask someone else who might know the answer, or who knows how to connect me to the answer that I need, who knows how to connect me to the person I need, to the resource I need, to the book I need, to the website I need, to the podcast I need. It can be so hard to ask for help, but it's absolutely critical. No shame, no guilt, no blame. So for all your caregivers who are listening, just do it. Just ask. And I pray that someone comes up to you first and says, how can I help?
Now you talk about turning life unexpected challenges into meaningful actions. Was there a moment when you realized your hardest experience could become someone's hope?
Absolutely. From the first time I shared my story personally, and that became a part of the fabric of who I was as a professional, I knew that continuing to do that was going to help other people. So I continued to share experiences, not just the arrest, not just my son's diagnosis, but other things that I experienced. Now, I share things differently today, being that my son is an adult and there's certain things he doesn't want shared, and I respect that. I respect those boundaries and those limitations. But there are things I've shared over the years that he was okay with me sharing. And I did that again to make people feel less alone, to say, I've been through this too. I've been through this type of appointment. I've been through this type of service. The school said something similar to me, and here's what I did about it. So I've continued to use multiple experiences over the years to shape what I do as a professional, to connect with people personally, and to continue to help them based on what I have done or what I have lived.
Did that realization change you?
Absolutely. It absolutely has changed me. Everything that I've gotten to do personally, professionally, lived experiences, friendships, connections, the way I advocate, the way I support people, it shaped my relationships. It's also helped me to shape what I deserve and what doesn't suit me. So there are many times over the years I had relationships that weren't the best fit for me. And there were times that my son has given me input and said, I didn't like him. I really don't like her. I remember the time that she said this and it made me uncomfortable. And hearing those stories and his insights shaped some of the relationships I've had over the years and helped me to learn which relationships I need to nurture and continue and that are the most value to me and to our family. But also to say sometimes there's a door right here and we need to close it, and we actually need to keep it closed and keep it locked. So his input and his insight has also helped shape the relationships I have, and that's truly changed my life and how I view who I connect with and how, and who is deserving of my time, who's deserving of my family's time.
What gave you the courage to keep sharing?
Sometimes I don't have the courage to share. As much as I've talked, during our time together about story sharing, and whether that's through books, whether it's through interviews, whether it's through my work, whether it's through coaching, whatever it is, there are some times that I feel like I can't share. And sometimes it's out of fear. Sometimes something may be out of embarrassment, something that's making me feel like I might be judged or that might make me feel anxious. Sometimes I'm able to overcome that, or I want to overcome that, and I take down that barrier and I share. But courage isn't always saying yes to sharing every story. It's about knowing what other stories need protected, that are sacred, that maybe I need to keep to myself. Maybe things that I shouldn't be sharing in extreme detail, and that it's okay to make that choice not to share. So sometimes courage isn't just saying yes. You can't say yes to everything. It's about that discernment of knowing what's okay to share and what might not be, and being okay with that decision.
Now, if you could redesign our schools, workplaces, and communities with belonging at the center instead of fitting in, what would look different?
Wow, that's a really powerful question, because there's so much in our world that still needs to change. We still hear about kids being restrained in schools. We still hear about birthday parties where a child is excluded. We still hear about workplaces who are not very forgiving of neurodivergent needs. We hear of people getting fired for being just who they are. We see situations where people make comments in public. So whether it's a community place, whether it's a school, whether it's a work environment, what have you, there's so much that still needs to be done. And what that looks like, to be honest, I don't know what that final part looks like, because I don't know if if we're ever going to get to a final space where we say, this is true belonging, because I feel like belonging is just an ongoing practice and it's not something that we achieve and we stop. Because needs change, the world continues to change. The world changed completely during COVID, and now we all exist in this different way. And there's so many things about our world, how we communicate, how we socialize, business practices. There's so many things that have changed because of this world pandemic. And the world is going to continue to evolve. And as the needs change, as the economy changes, as humanity evolves, I believe that belonging is something that is also going to continue to evolve. So I don't think it's something that we're walking on a journey and we just stop and achieve. I think it's that continued practice of giving the equity, giving the access, giving the inclusion, truly making people feel welcome, giving them help, giving them hope, and not excluding them. A huge first step is not excluding and continuing to ask the questions that are going to get us closer to where we need to be.
Now, people know you by many titles: an advocate, an author, speaker, leader, mom. When all those titles are set aside, who do you believe you are at the core?
I'm Kathy. Short and sweet. I don't have a long answer for this. I'm just Kathy. And who Kathy is all of these things. But I'm also someone who has human needs, human desires, dreams. And all of those make up who I am. I'm a cat lover. I love listening to chill out music. I love coffee, and can't imagine that you figured that out from my name, the Caffeinated Advocate, right? I love my cats. I had a dog. I also love dogs. I love being outside. I love taking walks in the sunshine. I love fall. It's my favorite time of year. I love Halloween. It's one of the most fun holidays there is. I love sunflowers. I love the color yellow. These are just little pieces that make up who Kathy is as a person, and all of those other things are just extra compliments. But I am who I am, just like you're who you are. We're human. We're just who we are.
What keeps you grounded?
Some days that's hard to define. I struggle with my mental health. I have had diagnoses I've been given over the years. To be transparent, I've struggled with anxiety. I've struggled with depression. I also struggled with an eating disorder for about 35 years of my life. And finally at a place where I could say I'm in true recovery. And, that's definitely lent itself to, my own development and, who I've become as a person. And, though that's been difficult, it's also lent itself to, who I've become and, how I support people and how I look at people, how I look at people authentically. So, that has also shaped the trajectory of who I am.
There are many people listening today who's feeling overwhelmed as a caregiver, unsure where they belong, or wonder whether their story matters. What would you want to say to them directly?
How can I help? How can I help? What can I do? I'd also want to reach through the screen and hug them because I'm a hugger. Like, that's another thing about Kathy. Kathy's a hugger. I would want to reach out and ask them what I could do. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe I just need to sit there and be quiet and listen, and I'm okay with that too. I'd love to hear their story. I'd love to hear their journey. And I'd want them to know that no matter what it is they're struggling with, they're going to be okay. There is help and hope. There are services, there are people, there are other people's experiences that you need to hear to know that you are not alone in this journey. There's people that care, and there's people that truly do want to support you.
What do you hope they take away from our conversation?
I'm not going to forget this conversation for a very long time, Reed. Truly. I've appreciated not only sharing with your audience, but I also love that you also shared some of your experiences and your story, because those are things that I'm going to look back on, whether it's 2 days from now, 2 weeks, 2 years, and be able to say, I remember the time that Reed talked about the man who was dying of cancer, but he had a sister that needed help and he helped him. I'm going to remember what you said about helping someone turn a simple room into a comfortable bedroom. I'm going to remember these types of things. I'm going to remember your stories too. And that's what I love about storytelling, is it's not just about me speaking, it's about me listening, and it's about me hearing, and it's about me processing. So I've truly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm going to be looking back on it for a long time to come.
What do you hope people take away from our conversation?
I truly hope that they hear that they absolutely aren't alone. I hope they've heard the word village. I
Mhm.
hope that they heard the word hope. I hope that they heard that there's help and there's people that care, and that you're not walking this journey by yourself. I also want them to hear that our loved ones, our neurodivergent loved ones, have a voice and they have a story, and that they matter, and that we can continue to learn from those every single day.
And what gives you hope for the future?
What gives me hope? The fact that I get to wake up every day and do this work and help other people, and know that oftentimes those messages are received. When I see the progress being made from families, when they call me back and tell me this is what my loved one did today, or when someone individually themselves calls me and says, I can't wait to talk to you about what I did at work today, or a child who comes into the center where I work and they say my name for the first time. In fact, there's a child that came into my office today. His clinician is working with him on back and forth communication. So he comes in with a board and he helps to write his question of the day. And this is a child that when he first came to the center about 6 months ago, wouldn't interact with me, wouldn't say a word, ran in fear of me like I described my son did when he was little and was afraid of playing with other children. This young boy now comes up to me, says, Hi, Kathy, and gives me a fist bump. Hi, Miss Kathy. Instead of running from me. And then he asks me a question. And he doesn't just ask me a question, he continues the conversation. Today he asked me, Have you ever been to the Great Wolf Lodge? And I said, No, buddy, I haven't ever been there before. What do you like about it? And he said, I ride water slides.
That's in Wisconsin.
So, yeah, when I heard that, and I thought about the fact that there was a time that this child wouldn't even look at me, and now he's fist bumping me. He's saying, Hi, Miss Kathy. He's not only asking me the question that he's supposed to ask me, he's continuing the conversation, and he's looking at me, and he's smiling, and he's laughing, and he's happy to tell me about what he did. That progress, seeing
Mhm.
those little things that so often other people take for granted, it's moments like that that give me hope.
And finally, where can people find out more about you online?
So they can follow my website. They can look into my different offerings at thecaffeinatedadvocate.com. I can also be found on Facebook and Instagram as at Caffeinated Advocates. I can also be reached at C Hughes, Hughes, at thecaffeinatedadvocate.com. And then I can also be found on LinkedIn as myself, Catherine Hughes.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Catherine Hughes. I'm Reed Miles. Stay curious, stay fearless, and remember, wherever you are, you're never alone. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Reed.